Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. I hope you are doing well. On the show today, we have one of our most favorite guests back, Prasad Rangnekar. He needs no introduction on this podcast. If you have been a long-time listener, you would have heard Prasad on the show many times over talking about a whole range of different topics. And Prasad and I have a lot of offline conversations about yoga teachers, the teaching yoga journey, the life of just this balance of being a student and a teacher. And we actually have a similar wavelength and nerd out about some of these things. So what you will hear today is a conversation between us about balancing the roles of being a yoga teacher and that of a student, because it's a genuine problem. A lot of yoga teachers and asana teachers, they struggle to maintain that fine balance of being a lifelong student while also navigating the commercial yoga world. So we get into a conversation about just, is it a problem of over-identifying with one role? What about FoMO and impostor syndrome? And then we recontextualize the role of a teacher in 2023 because it's very different today than what it was a long time ago. What are some practices or safeguards you can put in to help yourself? We talk a lot about the ethics of teaching yoga. Prasad mentions different levels of teachers, some philosophical concepts that you can hold on to on this journey. So it's an open-ended conversation. Okay, there is so much we could go into, but I'm hoping this conversation will give you some clarity, will make you realize that you are not alone when you think like that the struggle is actually real for a lot of people, and that you'll walk away from this conversation feeling a little more community, a little more supported, and also having a little more clarity on how to navigate. Okay, so that's what we have coming up for you on this episode of the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. Please remember that if you enjoy the show, rate it on Spotify, review it on Apple Podcasts, share it with your yoga friends. That organic reach is the only way we can continue to do what we are doing on this show. Okay. As always, everything about Prasad's work is linked at letstalk.yoga/listen. And I will see you on the other side. Hi, my name is Arundhati, and you're listening to the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. I'm an ex-Bollywood dancer turned yoga and wellness educator. I've built a 6-figure business as an immigrant, woman of color yoga teacher with no business background, no handstands, pure instinct, and the free information found on Google. If you love doing yoga and you dream of teaching it someday, this podcast is for you. We go over everything from doing and teaching yoga to scaling a small business, living a modern yoga lifestyle, and so much more. You'll find interesting, fun, raw conversations along with some tips, tricks, strategies, and insights in this podcast. So grab your cup of chai and let's jump in. Hi, Prasad.
Hi.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Yoga podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
I feel like this is overdue.
Yes.
I can't remember the last time you came was before we met in Thailand, right?
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah. So I am very glad you are here. I know you are leaving to Europe in a couple of days, and I pushed this topic on you about 2 days ago. So I'm really happy you are here. For the listeners, we're going to be talking about balancing the roles of being a yoga teacher and being a student. And I'm sure, Prasad, you get questions about this all the time. It is a genuine problem.
Yes.
A lot of yoga teachers are struggling, and they're not understanding how to continue to be a sincere student. And when they step into the role of a teacher, there's a power struggle there almost, right? Are you a teacher? Are you a student? So, and we were talking a moment ago before we hit record, right? This is an open-ended topic. But where do you think the problem really is? Is it that we as yoga teachers are over-identifying with the role or the label of being a teacher? Are we not talking enough about being a student? Where should one begin trying to understand this?
I think the more than a problem, I would say it is just just that the yoga industry or yoga profession itself is trying to find itself. So the way I see it is, it's exactly the similar trajectory of a person searching for their own self. So the yoga industry, which is very, very infant as compared to the yogic tradition, is every now and then trying to find itself by integrating trends, integrating new ideas, just like a teenager, who does one hairstyle, and then after 2 months wants to look like their favorite star, and after 3 months suddenly, no, I want to look like that fashion icon. So somewhere I feel, having seen yoga industry, if I may call it industry, over the last 20 years, it's trying to find its own footing in its own self-identity. The issue is that yoga has become a profession.
Yes.
You see? So yoga is seen as a qualification, as a profession. And then when you think of something as a profession, you just become it. It's like it's not looked at as a life skill, which it was. So as in life skill, as in swimming or driving a car. If you want to be a swimming instructor, you have to first enter the pool, let the water go into your eyes and mouth and nose and all that. Go through swimming experientially to be a lifeguard or a coach. So it's that experience component that makes you a better lifeguard. If you're, it's something like that. When we look at yoga as a life skill and grow through yoga, allow yoga to grow on us and allow us to grow through yoga, then we actually, to use a very recent term, embody yoga. And the more you embody yoga, the more you become a better giver of the knowledge. So there's a lot of rush to become a teacher. There's a hurry to become an advanced teacher. So somewhere that trajectory needs to be understood. That it's like some children, because of their circumstances, have to prematurely become an adult.
Yes.
And they miss out on childhood. Somewhere I see that is happening, because in just last 5 years, suddenly the popular yoga narrative has realized that, oh, yoga has a history. Oh, yoga has a culture.
Yeah. Totally. I so get what you're talking about.
Suddenly,
100%.
Suddenly, the modern popular yoga has, and nothing, I'm not saying it in a condescending way, it's just the way of, this is what I see. So suddenly, if yoga industry was a person, or a popular yoga was a person, like suddenly you wake up from a dream and like, wow, in my dream I was told that yoga has a history, yoga has a culture, let me find it. And then the scramble, does yoga origin from the Vedas, does yoga origin from exercises, blah blah. So it's really like that. And we, the stakeholders of modern yoga, popular yoga industry, we need to realize that there is so much education that we need to do before saying that we are a teacher.
Couple of things I want to pause on in your response. One is the joke about not joke. For you, it was an example. For me, it's a joke because I'm trying to learn swimming at this point in my life. Okay, and I realize I need so much more time
Yes.
to develop that skill.
Yes.
And when I'm actually struggling in the swimming pool, I think of all my students and how they might relate to yoga like that.
Absolutely.
Not related to anything, but just sharing. But there's something you brought up which is so valuable to understand is the yoga industry itself is an infant, right?
Yeah.
That's what you were talking about. And we have gotten stuck into branding teacher trainings as the only way to get access to some more yoga, deeper yoga, beyond asana type of thing. And I would argue that not all yoga teachers even give you beyond asana. Yoga teacher trainings give you beyond asana, right? So most people think, oh, if I'm studying yoga means I have to become a yoga teacher because yoga studios have sold it like that, right? For their own reasons. And recently I was having a conversation with somebody at our studio, and she was like, oh, I did not know, because it's a study program and optionally if you want you can work on training skills, teaching skills. And she was like, oh, I did not know all these years that I could enter a teacher training and not become a teacher. And we were having that conversation of how it's been branded like that, but at least how we do it, it's a study program. You don't want to ever teach, it's totally okay. So I think what yoga teachers miss is they forget the importance of, or the value of time, and the value of immersing themselves in all the tiny parts of this journey, right? And I think there is FOMO, like fear of missing out, that exists in every yoga teacher. Because many years ago, we didn't have social media. You weren't able to see what your studio down the road was doing, or across town or across the country or the globe was doing. So now that online real estate is very expensive, right? For our very short attention spans. So how do yoga teachers deal with FOMO? Or on the other, I think the same side of that coin is impostor syndrome, right? Even those who are reasonably skilled, I think they are not good enough. Sometimes I feel like people with very new skills who need to still work think they are very good. And imposters, I hear so many teachers saying, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. You may not be ready for all of yoga, but I tell them, if you're ready for a little bit of asana, then if you're called to it, go for it. So my question to you here, my long-winded, where I'm trying to go is, how does someone deal with imposter syndrome, or even this whole FOMO aspect that exists in modern yoga?
I would say there are lots of contributive factors to this. Number one, the way we approach the world itself is changing. Like we are becoming extroverted, extroverted society. We want to know who we are by seeing what others are doing. It's like Patanjali says this actually, vritti sarupyam itarat. Right? When you don't know who you are, you can be anything else what others think you are. You see, now when a yoga teacher doesn't have a firm grounding in studentship or lived experience, the only data of how they can be, what they should be, is external data. You see, if I don't know how I look in a blue dress, but when my friend says, oh, you look great in a blue dress, I believe my friend and I buy the blue dress. Because when I wear the blue dress and stand in front of a changing room mirror, there is no communication. There is no thought. I don't even know how I look in this dress. So the society is changing, number one. We are becoming more and more externalized. We want to define us depending on what others think of us. Okay. Secondly, like I said, less grounding in students. If the grounding starts itself in studentship, in experience, lived experience, like my teacher training courses are called yoga teacher training and self-development immersion. That's, when I defined the title, I was like, such a long title, but I said no, it conveys the entire project. It's not only teacher training, it's a self-development immersion too. Then if you feel confident, you can teach. If you don't want to teach, no problem. Secondly, sometimes the teachers may not feel comfortable teaching in a class setting.
Correct. I have a lot of teachers who never will step into a studio, but they'll teach in their home, they'll teach in their neighborhood.
Absolutely.
They'll teach in their office a little bit. Yeah.
So teaching, what has happened is we have defined yoga teaching only as a class setting. I've done teacher trainings now for the last 11 years, and I have 4 or 5 students who did not opt to teach through the class setup. Instead, they started writing blogs. They started making videos. They started quietly doing small satsangs and conversations, and they are doing fabulous at it. Fabulous. I have a couple of students who have created small sanghas, communities. They don't teach from the class, class setup point of view. So the knowledge can be passed to others also in different modes and not just a class setup.
Absolutely.
So the teacher should know that.
No, I couldn't agree more with you. We've had so many offline conversations about yoga teacher trainings for a couple of years and more now. There is, I like how you said you defined how you title your teacher trainings as a self-development program and teacher training. So it's very clear to the audience you're talking to both groups. I call it yoga study program and optional teacher training. So anybody who wants to bow out of the teaching parts, please do. If you want to sit, you want to explore, that's fine. But you're never pressurized.
Absolutely.
So I think having these conversations are needed because people sometimes are too scared to step out of that lane of yoga teacher training. So I'm glad you said that. And I completely echo, you don't have to teach at a studio. It's a conversation I have with teachers all the time, like you do. You don't even ever need to teach. And if you don't, you can teach from your garage. You can teach on Zoom. You can never teach. You teach your child, you teach your spouse. That's plenty. If you want to step into the commercial yoga world as it is established today, then yes, then you're going to a studio and stuff like that. But just because you don't do that doesn't mean your yoga is less.
Absolutely. One more thing that comes to my mind, Aru, is that when you are not marinated in studentship, like pickled by the juices of experience, you want to fill your self-worth by your professional achievements. This is a very sensitive point that I'm making. If you are unclear about who you are, you want your yoga teaching profession to define you who you are, which will be a big handicap. If you have low self-esteem, you are looking at yoga teaching to fill your self-esteem, which is literally suicidal. Why? Because, I got my 200-hour teacher training in last 20 days. Now I'm a teacher. Great. Fantastic. Then what happens is, when I have a full class, I feel good. When only 2 people show up, I feel bad. And I'm sure all yoga teachers go through this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I organized a workshop, nobody registered, I'm not a good enough teacher. This is, imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Why people are talking about imposter syndrome, or the other side of it, like you said, is FoMO. Oh, look at her, she was my batchmate. Now I saw her Instagram, she has 10 people, I hardly have 2 people. You see, so why we depend on external cues to tell us if
So
we
true.
are good or bad is because we have not introspected about our own self-worth. Like the yoga would say, buddhi is not clear. There's no clarity. You know what? I will just teach 3 classes. 5 students per class is good enough. And if my friend wants to teach in a stadium with 1,000 people, I wish well for her. But right now, my
Yes.
circumstances allow me to only teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 class, 5 people. That solid clarity will come through studentship or experiential learning, which I think is not given enough time.
So true. It's because of how things are set up, and people, and you and I know this, right? It took so long for someone to actually become a real teacher, like decades and decades
Yes,
and decades of studying. And nowadays I've seen people graduate and next month they're opening their own teacher training.
yes,
There's no, like you said, there's no time to marinate
yes.
in that. But I want to go back to something you said in the previous question. You were talking about grounding in studentship. And I know for a fact that the reason why I think of yoga in a certain way is because I had such grounded yoga teachers. And they never really told me you have to be like this. They just showed me how they were. You know what I mean? In action, they lived it. And I and it was easier for me to absorb by watching them, right? And I feel like that students do not spend enough time being a student,
Absolutely.
and they just jump over. And you said, right, if you have, your expectation is only 5 people and that in your class, I would say if you're a new teacher and you have 5 people, that's great.
Yes,
5 people are coming to you,
yes.
right? We've forgotten the power of 1
Absolutely.
or the 2
Yeah.
or the 3. You and I probably started with
Yes,
0 people. At
yes.
least I did. I don't know about you. With 0 people in my workshop. So many were cancelled early on, and 2 people in a class. I would be happy if 1 car drove into the parking
Absolutely.
lot, you know? Uh, but I think because of social media and how we set up ourselves online, we only show the highlight reel,
Yes.
which does a lot of damage. And I think we as yoga teachers have to take responsibility for that
Absolutely.
and also show the other side of things. Like I usually tell people, what you're seeing on Instagram today or even hearing on the podcast is 10 years of work
Yeah.
and 10 years of not of hard work.
Yes.
So if you are on month 1 or year 1 or year 2, there is time for you to go in a certain direction if you want to go in that direction. So I my question here is, how does one ground themselves in studentship? Because you and I have met teachers who've been in trainings where they've been unsatisfied, right? They feel like they didn't get much or learn much. So how does one begin now?
See, first of all, we have to understand that yoga is not an objective knowledge system. What do I mean by this is, or yoga is not an objective science. Means yoga is not like mathematics. 2 plus 2 is 4. Like I come to know 2 plus 2 is 4 in my first grade or second grade, and then it lasts me for a lifetime. Yoga is not like geography. You know that, oh, American continent looks like this. India looks like this. This is a height of Mount Everest. And then that doesn't change. That objective reality doesn't change. Or chemistry, H2O is water. Yoga is a subjective experience, subjective learning.
Yes.
It's not an objective science. This is a very, very Very, very important aspect that we should know. That's why it's called Vidya. In tradition, it's called Vidya. Or Patanjali says Prajna. Prajna means the wisdom that awakens within you. It's not knowledge. It's not information.
Yes.
You see, it's that prajna has to awaken in you. The knowledge has to resonate within you. When the students are told this, they will start training themselves for the long haul. It's like if you tell somebody in the primary school, you want a PhD, work for it. Why? Because nobody is going to give you a PhD at the end of your school year.
Yes.
Even if you want, I can give you like a fake notes from Monopoly or something like, take this PhD certificate after you graduate from your school. But if you want a PhD, school, college, university, masters, and then maybe some assistantship and then PhD. So you have to work toward it. So once, and I think there's this responsibility of yoga teachers who have understood this point to make others understand this.
Yeah.
That the more you experience, the more you reflect, the more you go through sorting out your own life challenges, the better yoga teacher you will become.
True.
Because ultimately, yoga teacher is not somebody who just gives information. I see yoga teachers at 4 levels. Okay. Number 1 is instructor.
Yes.
Somebody who just instructs. Traditionally, such a teacher is called a vachaka. Vachaka means just verbally, vacha.
Instructing.
Just verbal instruction. That's it. Nothing wrong. Okay. These are gradations, but nothing wrong if you are an instructor. Please don't.
And some people love to stay at that level.
Absolutely.
I've met people who want to just do that.
Absolutely nothing wrong. Then there's this stage of teacher. Okay. From instructor to teacher, where you tell about the how. Give more information about the how. So such a person is called a shikshak. Give shiksha, more knowledge about the how. It's like, okay, do the posture like this, this asana should be like this because this happens and all that. Then the third level where I feel is important is educate, where they help you with the how, a sustained help with the how. Okay. So educator wants to educate, not just teach. There's a big difference between the two. An educator will help you grow, not just teach you and go. Like your swimming instructor would be an educator. Why?
He's trying.
Well, that's an important point. That's a most
student is not ready.
That's why that person is definitely an educator, because that person has to be there for you. Assure you. Don't feel bad, Aru. Today water went in your eyes, nose, and everywhere, but still show up for your class tomorrow. It's gonna take a long time, but you will get better. This is the educator. And also giving the deeper guidance.
And setting expectations too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the fourth stage, I would say, is guide or guru. Where the guide literally handholds you, supports you. It's a deeper. So that would be somebody the traditions would call darshak. The one who shows you the darshana, gives you the darshan. So we have to mature through these stages, and the maturity will happen the more you experience. So That's why I always compare it with competitive sports. Though there's nothing competitive about it, but like a competitive sports person, first you play at the university level. When you become better, state level, then national level, then you go into the national team, and then you become the best in your country. Then you represent your nation. There is a certain growth curve to it. We have to tell the yoga student right from the get-go that this is a journey. This is a process. This is not a product. That I give you, you take it and you become it. No, you have to grow through it, grow with it, and grow into it. Once that is made clear, then I think the foundations are ready.
Can I step in here for a moment? The fact that you said foundation, right? I think laying that is so important. And I believe very firmly, and I honestly got this from my teachers, is you lay the foundation, then anything you put on top of it will be solid.
Yeah.
If your foundation is not, really strong, then nothing you build on top of that will ever stay steady for you.
Absolutely right.
And the only person who will suffer is you.
Yes.
A joke I make with students in asana classes or in trainings is there is no expiry date on any of these practices.
Absolutely.
Right? And so there is no need to rush. And I always tell them, I'm in no rush to get you there. You might be in a rush, right? But we cannot rush together because it doesn't work like that.
Absolutely right.
So reminding people that there's just no expiry date on this. Whether it takes you 2 months to understand this or 2 years, it is okay.
Absolutely.
And I often question, I'm like, are you in a hurry? Why are you in a hurry? Right? What is there at the end? Like you're rushing to somewhere. What is there for you at the end? Is it a full yoga class that you will teach at a studio? Because that is a fantasy right now.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it is because we as yoga teachers and you and me as lead trainers, we don't have these honest conversations with students. And we don't, but it depends, right? What is the trainer's motivation?
Yeah.
How grounded are they? How grounded are they in their studentship?
Yes.
And it's become just next training. You do the 200, then you go to 300. I actually tell people you don't need to ever go to a 300. You can get enough with never doing teacher training or a 200.
Absolutely.
So
I say that
I don't
too.
think there's a question.
After 200-hour training, I tell people, the students, that now you have enough knowledge to last you for a few lifetimes.
Yes.
Yes, like
100%.
Core knowledge. And even if you do these practices, it's enough for your own self-growth.
Yes.
And absolutely, not because my course is giving a lot. It's not about the lot. It's about, there's a beautiful word in Sanskrit called ekanishtha. Ekanishtha. Being faithful to that one goal. So it doesn't need too much. And this is not from a professional standpoint. This is from a personal standpoint of being a student. You just need 1 or 2 practices for your sadhana. You don't need a whole bouquet of practices. And you will, the student grows towards it, things start falling off.
Yes, and I think the deeper you go, you have the urge to simplify.
Exactly.
At least I do.
Yes, absolutely.
And you said this earlier, right? We're in this information trap.
Yes.
And because we haven't, I'm going to go back to marinated, maybe because I just had dinner before this recording. Okay. But because we're not marinating enough, we try to take on, okay, I will teach you 20 practices. I will teach you 30 practices. I'll teach you 500 poses. So we try to put on all these external things to dump on the students. But what really works is that teacher who says, I will teach you 5 practices that will last you a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And the teachers who aim to simplify, I think there's a beauty in that simplicity that we lack in popular yoga, as you call it.
Absolutely.
So is it in 2023, do we need to redefine or even recontextualize what is the role of a yoga teacher? Because we take this ancient practice, this cultural practice, and we're plucking it and putting it into this popular modern capitalistic yoga world, which I have no problem with. We've spoken about that. You and I are part of it. So do we need to recontextualize what is the role of a teacher? It's probably a very stupid question.
No, it's not a stupid question. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a very, very, very deep question.
Like, I'll give you an example. Right? Like, I tell people that a simple thing to do is to call yourself an asana teacher, an asana instructor. And anybody who asks you, say, I'm studying many parts of yoga, but I only teach asana. And that way you're not claiming that you know all of yoga. And if anybody who comes to you with questions of beyond asana that you're not capable of answering, you're already saying, hey, there's so much, my one lifetime's not enough to study all of it, but this little part, I know something and I can share that.
Absolutely.
And I feel like simple shifts like that will lift the weight off of a lot of teachers' shoulders.
That's honesty to the self.
Yes. And I also think we as yoga teachers, we compare our journey with everybody else's, which is a big red flag, because that teacher might be, you're comparing your start to somebody's middle. Would it be helpful to then have a list of core ethics for yoga teachers?
Yes. But Aru, I want to come back to what you said before. Sure. 90% of my energy that goes in supporting students, 90% is in assuring them that they are good.
Yeah.
90.
I can relate to that.
90%.
I can relate to that because.
And these are teachers, not just who are like 2 years or 3 years in training. These are teachers who are with me for 12, 15 years. Okay? And nothing, no, it's not about putting them down. Just wanting to normalize the fact that it takes time. It's a long haul journey. And that's why if there is one, if I could suggest one cue or one tip, is number one, be patient.
Yes.
It would be the ahimsa of the yama, the most important, be patient. It's like you board a flight and you ask, how long to my destination? And the air hostess says, 10 hours. Then you don't get up and want to get off the plane after 2 hours.
2 hours. Yeah.
10 hour, long haul flight. You take off your socks, you play your nice movie, you're sipping some whatever, and you know that after 10 hours, you are going to land. You don't just, my movie is over now, I want to, jump off the plane. No, you don't do that. So it's really, like you said, recontextualizing. It's about education. Imagine if the yoga teachers fully accept this fact that this is not about claiming that you are something every day. It is about growing into something beautiful, something more than what you are today, being a better version of yourself. And if that teacher teaches with the same mindset to her students or his students, that there's no rush. Keep coming to my class, 1 year, 2 year. There's no need to rush. Then that attitude is passed on.
Correct.
So First thing is patience. And the FOMO and what you said is making us impatient because we compare ourselves with others' trajectory.
So true. Others' trajectory. There is. You said something about we talk about educating students. I actually like to think of I think we're focusing on the wrong problem generally. We're talking about training students in teacher trainings and these things, right? I feel like we should shift the conversation to retraining teachers, which is what you and I end up talking about a lot. We have conversations with teachers. I know you do it already. And it is, I always say, don't try to raise the level of the student, raise the level of the teacher.
Absolutely.
And the teacher will raise the bar for the student. And I think there is so much focus on teach yoga this way, teach yoga that way. I think we should turn that around and look at ourselves and see how we are teaching it to ourselves. Like in these student immersions, teacher trainings, on day one, I say, the only person I'm going to teach yoga is to you to teach to yourself.
Beautiful.
And whether you teach anybody, that's up to you, and that's a different conversation. But if you cannot teach it to yourself in some capacity, you can't teach it to others. And I mean, I say it a little more refined than what I'm saying right now, but it is, I think, where we have missed in popular yoga because of this templated 200 hours, 12 weekends or whatever we do. And I do it too. So 20, okay, 20 days. 2 weeks. I've heard of 2 weeks.
Which is okay. It's not, again, not
I'm
condescending.
a product of a 30-day, 200 hour. I've done several of those, but I'm a product of a 30-day training. I believe it is, when it's given to you, you take it, and then what do you do with it?
Yes.
And what I think we have missed in all of this is what I call the invisible yoga. Right? There are so many things that I know you say and do, and we talk about making teachers more reflective, right? And those are not easy to teach because there's no instant gratification in that. And I was writing something today for the newsletter, and I was I can't remember the context of it, but I was writing there that you don't do yoga for fun. You don't come to yoga for fun. Fun is subjective. You can do it you can find fun in other ways. For me, running with Munch is fun. But you come to yoga because it's fulfilling.
Exactly.
And so you don't go to yoga class to have fun. If you end up having fun, great. Okay. But the experience is meant to be fulfilling in a certain way.
Yeah.
And there was more to that, but I feel like
totally agree with this. And Upanishads also talk about this.
Oh, is it? Okay. The invisible yoga is where we need to focus a little more.
So Upanishads talk about prayas and shreyas. What is pleasurable and what is meaningful. Prayas is what, Prayas is something, like you said, instant gratification.
Okay.
And Shreya means growth, which actually contributes to your growth. So the whole idea of yoga is to focus more on Shreya. And in the yoga teacher training things, what usually I have seen this with a lot of students of mine is gaining qualification becomes an addiction. So, and sometimes there's a line, one of my favorite lines in any scripture. There's a line in a scripture called Shiva Sutra. It says, Jnanam bandha. Knowledge is bondage. It's a very radical line. Jnanam bandha. Knowledge is bondage. But what knowledge are they talking about? Because I have had students who are like, they do their 200 hour, and I'm like, okay, so are you going to teach now? Capable students. Not helicoptering them or me not asking them to, but they are like, no, now I want to do therapy training for next 1 year. Okay. Done. So have you started training now? No, now I want to do prenatal. Oh, okay. No, of course, now after prenatal, I want to do postnatal. So 3-4 years after their 200 hour, just getting degrees and qualifications and photos of qualifications, and many do that to avoid teaching, because when you teach, you're facing the reality, not the
It
not
is so
the
true.
professional reality, your reality too.
Personal reality.
Absolutely.
It's a personal reality. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then I had a few students who are like, I will only teach free classes, charity. And then I was like, okay, fine. And then when I checked on that person was like, no, I will continue because it's more fulfilling. I said, wait, why aren't you charging for your classes? Say, no, because I want to contribute. I said, wait. Is this really what you believe in? Or you don't want the accountability?
Yeah.
So our mind, and then that person was like, oh no, I didn't even realize. So why? Because if I charge my students some price, then I'm accountable to deliver. But
Absolutely.
if I do it free, I'm not accountable.
There's no accountability, like you said. Yeah.
So
Fair enough.
our ego plays a lot of games, even in the yoga teacher role.
Yeah.
To
I mean, I
catch the
couldn't agree more.
ego, we need to be grounded in studentship.
Mm-hmm.
If you are 60%, if you believe you are 60% student and 40% teacher, that 60% student will catch the faltering, the traps
True.
of that
Anchor.
40% teacher. That's why the anchor has to be in a humble student, being a humble student.
I agree. And we don't talk about being a student as much as we talk about being a teacher. So there is something I've said in passing in some trainings before, and I say you're now in the information stage. I'm going to be downloading so much information on you, and for you to process and upload that could take a few weeks, could take a few months, could take years, and beyond this lifetime. Okay, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Some aspects you will grasp, some aspects you will not grasp, but you keep at it. But don't realize that there is information, then there is a long bridge to make it knowledge.
Absolutely.
And when that knowledge is deep within, I say literally your bones, then it becomes wisdom.
Absolutely.
And there is no shortcut or fast track to sounding wise or being knowledgeable. Some of us will get there, some of us will not, but don't look that far ahead. Sort through the information first and make that, sit with that a lot more.
Absolutely.
Work with it. And I think calling out things like that, right? Like, this is just information. This over time will become knowledge. Maybe if you put in time, effort, meet the right teachers, be grounded. Wisdom is a far reach. I mean, I can't talk about wisdom. And it's, there's no question there. It's just that trap.
You said something very important. If you find the right teachers. Because at the student level, you will not know where my information has become knowledge. This is why it is very important to be under the tutelage of a teacher. You will not know. I mean, unless you are really so trusting of it, then it comes as a revelation. But when you're working with a teacher, you will know the difference between pleasurable, as you said. What did you say? I used the word meaningful and pleasurable. Yeah.
I forgot what
you said, the Prayas and Shreyas, the same thing,
Yeah. Fun and fulfilling.
Fun and fulfilling. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You will keep on taking certification after certification as fun. Why? Because it's making you
feel good in the
moment, and also making you boost your ego or your self-esteem. But then when you start teaching, and when nobody shows up and people cancel upon you, people say, no, I didn't like your class, that is actually facing the reality.
True. And again, we've forgotten that the power of one or Even one person walking into your class once in a while,
Yes.
that's a huge thing.
This is the spiritual bypass that they talk about. Avoiding what needs to be done.
True. And we paused on this point of finding that teacher, right? And I've often said that don't look at the qualifications of the teacher, the academic qualifications, because you and I know we can bolster that and make ourselves look so awesome.
Absolutely.
While it's important, it matters. I'm not trying to belittle that at all. It's necessary. But I feel like we put so much emphasis on that we do not use our critical thinking skills enough. I think for me personally, and I've said this to other students, is always notice how a teacher makes you feel. If you feel a little more calmer, clearer, reflective, you have a little more reverence for yoga after those interactions, notice that. Or notice sometimes people use anger and hatred and division and bias to draw people towards them. So always notice, yes, while qualifications are important, again, I go back to, I can't say this in a better way, but the invisible qualities, the invisible qualifications, put your focus there a little more than on paper. Anybody can have a 5-page yoga resume.
I have these three. Yeah. I can suggest 3 or 4 invisible qualities because you asked.
Okay, sure. We went from ethics to invisible qualities. I'll take
it. It forms the part of ethics also. The yamas, I could say. Yamas for a teacher to become a student. Number 1 invisible quality, Shraddha. Shraddha is trusting the knowledge and trusting the teacher. This cannot be demonstrated.
Yes.
That's why I took on your word invisible quality, because it cannot be demonstrated. Most important, Shraddha. And Shraddha, not just trusting my teacher, trusting what I am studying in yoga, trusting that right things will come to me at the right time.
Yes, and if I can add, when we say trust, we're not saying trust blindly.
No, not at all.
Yeah, because that has happened too, right? We're saying trust your intuition, your gut feeling, and all the other things you have.
Yeah. But it's like I am attending somebody's course, so I bring in a little bit of trust in that course. Yes. I cannot sit there as a skeptic. No, ma'am, this course is not good because I don't agree with it. No. When you are in the course, at least keep your mind open and listen to the teacher rather than sitting there and, cutting down the teacher. Or even yoga. I'm trying yoga, but I don't really believe in it. So don't, bring. This is the most important quality that you bring to the table as a yoga practitioner, a little trust. And like I said, there are millions of testimonials right from last 4,000 years of the success of yoga. So number 1 is Shraddha, that is trust. Number 2 is your own sadhana.
Yes.
Again, nowadays you can document your sadhana on the reels, like I'm meditating and like this with the phone. But again, it is that back end work. I call it the back end work. Like when we check into a hotel, we only see the superficial functionings of the hotel. But if you go to behind, the housekeeping, laundry, and where the food comes in and the kitchen, you will not feel this is a 5-star hotel because there's a grind in that back end part of the hotel. So second is your own hard work, Shraddha, sadhana. Third invisible quality would be Swadhyaya, your own study. Your own regular, dedicated study of yogic scriptures or whichever domain you are working on. Could be some self-help books too. Or you want to understand.
You can reach beyond yoga,
like reconciling pranayama, reading research notes, reading experiments, reading about psychology, reading about neurosciences, all that. Why I recommend some of my students to do diet courses, nutrition courses, because it's a holistic thing. And the
Yeah,
fourth,
you
I
can
would say,
expand your horizons. Yeah.
dhriti. Dhriti means resilience. Resilience. Now, resilience, why? Because, as you said, you give them the information. Then they have to process the information to make it into knowledge or live it as experience and make it a wisdom. That's not going to be easy. It's not like it's not like scanning a QR code. Yeah, you have to literally, okay, my teacher taught me this today. Like, let's say you teach them pratyahar. They understand pratyahar. Patanjali said this as pratyahar. Okay, now I will practice pratyahar. So, digital detox for 1 month. Then the fight, then the dopamine spike, and then why going no, switch off, no, maybe I have messages, forget it. All
Withdrawal symptoms.
absolutely. That, what Patanjali says, tapasya. Now going through the oppositions, good and bad, the push and pull. That is what makes a teacher out of a student. How you manage your own ego crisis, how you experiment with your ego, your limited identity, your conditionings, and how you mature through it will make you a better teacher.
True. That's applying your yoga.
Absolutely.
Right? Applying your yoga over and over again. I want to, and this might be a little off tangent, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Two things. One is simplistic. Just going to say it. One is we just think teaching yoga, studying yoga is going to be easy. So the one thing I constantly remind students is it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy. Who said yoga was easy, right? Maybe marketing shows you people are blissful or pretending to be blissful, but you could get there. But there's a huge journey that you take, right? But that's the smaller point I want to make. I've noticed a lot of yoga teachers, they tend to be, and I say this very compassionately and respectfully, they tend to be very dismissive. When you don't understand something, you dismiss it, right? And I think we as teachers, we need to catch ourselves doing that. I'll give you an example. Recently, someone was telling me on Instagram that yoga is not yoga is not about sensory withdrawal. That's
Yoga is
not a
not
thing.
sensory withdrawal. Okay.
Yeah, right. We were talking about the stages, and it was related to something. And then there were other things where people are just like, this is not yoga, this is not yoga, that is not yoga. And somehow our opinions about yoga was sounding like my opinion is yoga. You know what I mean? Yeah. So how do we remove this maya, if I may call it that? Or replace that with a better word. But how do we as yoga teachers create the pause, the space for reflection, the need to not be right all the time?
This will again go back to that studentship, because
Yeah.
see, it's just like a 8th grade student of mathematics will not say, I know advanced calculus.
Fair enough.
They'll just sit quietly in a group debate. Ideally, okay? If they open their mouth, they'll prove that they don't know anything. So you rather keep quiet. But the need to express your opinion all the time.
Yes.
I had once written on Facebook, you don't always have to take a stand. Sit and meditate.
Good one. Really good one. It reminds me of, I keep saying opinions are not yoga. You might have an opinion about, but that's not yoga.
I feel, like sometimes when I write on Instagram in the comment section, but I feel Patanjali said this. No, we cannot do that.
You cannot feel what Patanjali said. Yeah.
Don't reduce Patanjali to feel. Yes, You can interpret it like that, but as a knowledge system, Patanjali said something very precisely in a context. That's why it's a sutra. Plus, to fill up the gap of ambiguity, there are bhashyas like the Vyasa Bhashya.
Correct. Commentaries,
So
yeah.
you are given an ecosystem of what and how much you should think, and you think in that scope. You don't say, "Oh, but Patanjali actually, I feel Patanjali wanted to say this." Fair, but then that's your belief. Doesn't mean Patanjali actually wanted to say this. So this I think comes down to humbleness.
Yes. I think that is one of the most important qualities of a teacher or of a human being. Forget teacher. I just think human being is humility.
Yeah. A few times people ask me, what about the singing bowls? Does it work? I say, I don't know, because I don't work with singing bowls. It
Neither
could be
do I, yeah.
working. I know people who have a lot of benefit with singing bowls. But don't ask me for my opinion, because I don't have that domain expertise or even domain knowledge. So who am I to tell you about, no, singing bowls, no, these are not a part of yoga. I don't know. So I don't feel comfortable expressing an opinion about something that I don't know. And if I express, I will make it clear that this is what
That is
I
your personal
feel,
yeah.
and it should not be generalized. This is
Correct.
This is very, very important. It should not be I feel, therefore it's a fact. Feelings cannot be
Yes.
facts.
Yeah, and I also feel yoga teachers, their feelings get hurt very quickly. And that goes back to, I think, inner work.
Yes.
Because it isn't about you. It isn't about your feelings, right? I always tell people it's about the yoga. And if you keep your focus more there and less on you, you'll just have a better journey
Absolutely.
throughout.
And even if it's your feeling, Aru, be so clear about it that you don't get offended by other people's opinion.
Yes. I think the newest, maybe it's not new, maybe I'm awake on Instagram in the past few years, but everybody's waiting to be offended by something you say or don't say. Whether you say it, they're offended. Whether you don't say it, they're offended. I sometimes wonder, where is that inner peace that we yoga teachers are trying to find? And anyway,
This is
I
where
laugh at all of it.
this is what I said earlier. When you don't have clarity within, you want to gather points from outside.
So true.
You see, when I'm not sure about myself, I want agreement and validation from 10 other people.
Everybody
When
else.
I'm more confident about myself, I have no need for validation from others. So this is again a reminder to us, yoga teachers, that self-work should be foundational if one wants to be a yoga teacher who is going to create some changes in life. And like you said earlier, that people don't know the profundity of this process. So they feel like, yeah, but it's not easy. I mean, when I tell people, do your sadhana every day, yeah, but it's not easy. Of course it's not easy. Who told you yoga is going to be easy?
Yeah, I don't know where that messaging came across either.
I also wonder, like, no, the process is not easy. Forget, even at the physical level, if you are
it's not easy.
It's not easy. And then when you go to the mental level, it's even more difficult.
So true.
And that's why you need firm grounding in Shraddha, in trust in the wisdom, trust in the teacher, having a support system of a community, a good, solid teacher to stand by you, to stand through your ups and downs. This was a system that was provided in ancient traditional system.
Correct.
And that is somewhere missed out upon them.
Correct. I was just going to say, which we have done away with in popular yoga for reasons we've spoken about before. And that's caused, the only person paying the price are yoga teachers.
Yes. It's like when you go to a teacher to study in ancient times, even if you read the Upanishads and all, it's very clear. When you go to a teacher, you're not just going to the teacher, you're going into a system. Then there is a ethical code, moral code, you have your fellow students, you have a teacher, you have a teacher's wife, so it's literally when you become a brahmachari and go to a teacher's house to study, you are taken care of by an entire system, not just education, but support system, fellow students, inspirations. That somewhere out, because of commodification, that whole ecosystem that was provided to the student in the earlier times is done away with.
True. So
that's
true.
why you feel like a lonely warrior on the path.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, 100%. I think yoga teachers feel lonely and they feel sad about being a yoga teacher. Once, I know we're at time, but quickly tell you this. Once, a couple of years ago, I connected with a studio owner here locally in Seattle. And she had a chain, or she had opened her studios 25, 27 years ago. So I really looked up to her. I never met her, but I really looked up to her because 27 years of running, a studio takes a certain amount of dedication and hard work. And we connected on Zoom, and she sold her studios and all of that. But she told me one line which has stuck with me till date. She said, you look very happy for a yoga teacher.
Wow.
Most yoga teachers are not happy. And I honestly did not know how to react to that statement, because she's obviously been in the industry longer than I have. And it made me very sad, because at some level, I know what she was talking about was actually true for a lot of people. But I'm also somebody who believes you're in control of your narrative. And anyway, it stuck with me. It stuck with me more than I thought it would. Because I think we over-identify with that label of being a yoga teacher. So yeah, I mean, no real question here. Just the fact that she was saying 27 years, I haven't seen happy yoga teachers.
When somebody says they don't want to teach anymore, and a lot of people have told me, some of my students have also told me, I say, okay. They say, what? But I will not teach. I say, okay. But don't stop being a student of you.
Correct. That is all that matters.
Don't. You don't teach. Fine. Do something else. Take up a job or do something completely, but stick to your sadhana. Not because you can come back to some other time, but
for yourself.
Profession depends on the person. The person makes a profession. Profession in itself is not the whole and soul. Take care of the person, the profession will take care of itself.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I can talk to you for like another few hours or till your flight to Europe is about to take off. But this is wonderful. I know we jumped into it because it's an open-ended topic and we can go on and on. I have a bunch of other questions that I want to ask you, but I'll save it for another time. Is there anything else you want to bring in, or do you think we can wrap this up?
Just a little structure for yoga teachers who want to be students. First, learn. Learn means learn from your teacher. Then practice or apply. First, get the information, practice and apply, reflect. This is something that doesn't happen. Reflection.
Absolutely.
Then integrate. Integrate, like we said, marinate, integrate in your life. You study pratyahara, practice pratyahara. And then whatever you get out of that, you teach. So teaching is an output of your studentship. Teaching is a matured output of your studentship and your practice and your experience. So teaching is the flowering of the seed of studentship that you planted years ago.
Fair enough.
So that is, I would say, the growth curve of a student. And only then you will face less of FOMO or whatever, because this whole life cycle allows you to own up in what you believe.
Yes, and I also believe that knowing and being comfortable to say, I don't know this is my weak spot, this is my blind spot, I'm not good at this, doesn't make us any less.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. And I think once we drop that, just because, and even let me even simplify it even further, just because you can't do arm balances doesn't make you any less of an asana practitioner or even teacher for that matter, right? There's context to that.
Absolutely.
Like if a student wants to come and learn arm balances, do you want to hold them back? No, you send them to another teacher who can give them that if
Absolutely.
that's what they're seeking. And I'm generalizing, there's more context, but all I'm trying to say is we have to pause and understand what are our internal markers for success.
Absolutely.
And detach from what we've been fed externally. And maybe that'll help.
Yes.
And tons of reflection.
Yeah.
I was making notes as you were saying that. I think if there is one thing I would tell yoga teachers to do more of, is just to sit and reflect, just be in reflection. Half the things I have learned in life or in yoga, let's not go to life might be a little more complicated.
Yeah.
So is just by reflecting.
Absolutely.
Oh, my student is stuck here, how do I figure this out?
Yes.
Oh, I'm stuck here, how do I figure this out? I'm not understanding this. Reflect. Just, I think we don't give enough space for
Absolutely.
that.
And reflection also keeps you in your lane, in your little zone.
Yes.
If you don't reflect,
So
your mind flies out everywhere and starts comparing.
True. And hopefully that reflection is giving you more reverence.
Absolutely.
Instead of sending you in a tailspin instead.
Absolutely.
So
yoga teachers, don't be under pressure to know a lot. Just know yourself.
Wonderful. I will add to that and say what I've said many times before. Even if you know a little yoga, it's okay. Know that little yoga really clearly.
Absolutely.
Like in depth. Learn a little yoga, learn it well. Right?
Very well.
Yeah. Well, Prasad, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It is so wonderful to have you back on the podcast. I am very fulfilled because I bumped into you in Thailand.
Yes.
Right? So, but I'm very, very glad you're back on the podcast. I know this will not be the end of it, and that you will come back, whether you want to come back or not. I will drag you back on the podcast anyway.
I would love to. We have lots to discuss and lots to reflect upon together, Arup. So yes.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As always, thank you for listening. If you would like to get free teacher development resources in your inbox, make sure you have signed up for my bite-sized bi-monthly newsletter. The link is in the podcast description and in the show notes. I will be back next week with another guest, another conversation. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.